Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. And I can see some men in the audience. And I also met with some at the backstage. I congratulate you for your willingness to join us. And I hope you are not here simply to impress your wives. Today, I want to share with you a story that brings light on my country and the journey which we have made as a nation. It was not an easy path. A constant struggle of existence, of resistance, of survival, of participation, of recognition. At the same time, it is one journey of hope and determination to overcome difficulties, to look towards the future. Of rebuilding amid the ruins of the bitter past that hangs over us as a reminder of a sequence of our painful history, of events that should have never happened, of tragedies that should never, ever be repeated. I will begin with the early 90s, which find the democratic world celebrating the victory of democracy in Europe. The fall of the Berlin Wall is followed by the fall of the Iron Curtain that had held people separated and isolated for decades. Captives of repressive regime that denied their citizens every right to live freely, to be the masters of their own fates, to live in peace, to fulfill their dreams and potential, to speak up and to think freely. The wind of change held with itself the promise that nowhere in the world can people be held in the grip of repression, fear, and poverty. Democracy won. Europe opened a new chapter that encouraged and celebrated the cooperation among peoples who had understood the need of reconciling old animosities into friendship, who had put their resources in the service of one another for the common welfare. Throughout Central and Eastern Europe, the communist regimes shook, and people rose up fearlessly, willing to lose everything in search of freedom, peace, and democracy. A wind of hope and of a brighter future was blowing. It seemed that at last Europe was closing its dark chapter. In fact, a part of Europe found peace, and we were all witnesses of its new beginning. But its most southeastern part, the Balkans, inched toward a very dark and bloody decade. Countries and peoples of the former Yugoslavia experienced the revival of divisions that in the name of ethnic and religious differences turned neighbors into sworn enemies. This part of Europe headed toward a period of wars that left hundreds of thousands dead, injured, raped, or missing. Wars that left behind entire cities and villages burned, hundreds of thousands of families destroyed, heartbroken, with their dreams interrupted, with open wounds that still have not found peace. For the first time, for this part of Europe, the 90s brought along the wind of hegemony, the attempts of one people to rule over others, the iron hand of a repressive regime that instigated wars for 10 years in a row. Allow me to evoke a few moments from Kosovo from this period, told through the eyes of the women of Kosovo, who are an inseparable part of every chapter of our history. Stories that today define the identity of who we are, a reminder of the challenges that we faced as a society, and tremendous willingness and work we undertook to change it. These were very grim and difficult years of the people of Kosovo. Those were the years that followed the suspension of Kosovo's autonomy by the Serbian regime of Milosevic. These were times of a terrible repression, which brought the endless poverty and daily struggles to provide basic food to families across Kosovo. The people of my country are proud people. They put the care, respect, and honor of the family above everything. These values have always guided our society, and in many cases have defined its norm of behavior. In these difficult years, when my countrymen and women were deprived of the right to work because of their ethnicity, a group of journalists set to chronicle a dire poverty that had captivated Kosovo villages in one of the poorest and most isolated parts of Kosovo. They find themselves in a house, its bare floor and walls soaked wet from the previous night's snowfall. A faint light bulb shone the pale faces of the children and the doors of the closet, the only piece of the furniture in their room. As the children sat quietly, curious at the stranger's presence, their mother was nowhere to be seen. "Where is she?" asked the reporters, hoping to get a better feel of the daily hardship of feeding a family of 6, since the father, in his 40s, had a tough time admitting to the abject poverty. The children ran to the closet, opened the doors, and there she was, tucked inside, her small, frail body, escaping the prying eyes of the reporters. I believe that all of you are curious to know, why is this woman in the closet? What is this woman hiding? Why did she run to the closet in a search of a brief escape? Poverty and deplorable conditions in which the family lived had stolen away her pride. We regard ourselves as noble and proud, but in times like these, we found ourselves stripped of our identity. We felt strangers in our own skin. Clearly, this was not the reality of every woman in Kosovo, but this story presents our common reality of the time, our saddening reality which we had found ourselves trapped. It is in March of 1998, when the whole state apparatus of Serbia stormed villages to revenge the emergence of Kosovo Liberation Army, the guerrilla force that fought for an independent Kosovo. And being a man in Kosovo at this time represented a great danger. Entire families in the villages in a part of Kosovo known as Drenica are under the siege. No one can enter and no one can leave. Entire families are isolated. In these difficult days of March, in the street of capital city Pristina, the women have raised their voices against this great injustice, against this humanitarian catastrophe. These women have banded together, carrying loaves of bread in their hands, heading towards these villages under the siege. They were determined to walk 50 kilometers to send bread to these villages. And when stopped by the Serb police cordon, they raised their voice and shouted, "We have bread, not weapons, let us pass." It was the voice of these women who rose so loudly against this horror. This voice could no longer remain silent, could no longer hide itself in a closet. Despite the many attempts to dehumanize and silence her, they were not successful. Their voice was never silenced. Women during the war in Kosovo were the backbone of their families. There was nothing which could stop them to protect their families. There was nothing at any time which could make them surrender. These women became direct targets of torture, of beating, of sexual violence and abuse, means used as a weapon of war. Nearly 20,000 of them are estimated to have been raped during the war. This painful part of our history ended with the humanitarian intervention of NATO, with the liberation of Kosovo, with the initiation of building the institutions of Kosovo, with the rebuilding of the new, inclusive Kosovo. In 2000, only a few months after the war had ended, I joined the Kosovo police force. I have lived all my life in search of freedom and justice. Now was the time, the moment to take the responsibility and contribute in building a free society. As we start rebuilding the institutions of Kosovo, we were also rebuilding the trust of the people in these institutions. We knew we could earn this trust only by offering security and equal opportunities to everyone, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their gender. During the very first days, when I wore the police uniform, I faced with a pleasant surprise. People stopped us to tell us that the image of the women police officers changed their perception of an institution they once feared. We, the women police officers, helped make Kosovo Police become one of the most trusted institutions in the country, with the largest number of the women on the service. I feel privileged and proud to have been a member of this service, and the same mission guides me every day. The mission to serve the citizens of my country, to offer them the possibility to live in peace. As I continued my work in service to Kosovo and its citizens, I continued to stumble upon stories of inspiration. In my first days as the president of Kosovo, I met a very special group of the women from a village in Kosovo called Krusha. In this village, almost all the men were killed. The women who returned home after the war were not only left with a burden of an unimaginable pain of loss, but they were also left with a responsibility to head their household, to secure the livelihood of their families. These women broke every barrier to ensure the survival of their families by taking up roles which were traditionally held by men. They were able to transform the destroyed village and convert it into a village of women entrepreneurs. I choose to meet them, to feel the strength that women possess, the strength to move on, to build a better lives for their families. I felt the dedication and determination of a mother to overcome all types of difficulties and obstacles for a better today and for a brighter future for her children. Today, our struggles have not ended. Yet, these are strives of a free country, of a democratic society that wants to better itself. With the declaration of Kosovo an independent and sovereign state, Europe has finally found its peace. For the first time, we are masters of our own fate, and we have sworn to build a different Kosovo. A Kosovo where investment in women shall be an investment in the family and in the prosperity of the whole society. This new era of integration and participation, as never before in the history of mankind, is offering new opportunities for cooperation, where inclusiveness and diversity have become crucial. Around the world, countries and people historically divided or left on the outskirts through means of oppression, social tradition, or prejudice are taking their deserved places on the table. The struggle of the women of Kosovo still continue to take their deserved place on the decision-making table, to actively participate in the society, to integrate and play their role in this part of our history, as they have always done. By introducing a 30% quota, the women of Kosovo now represent 1/3 of Kosovo's parliament. At the central level, they have become a part of the decision-making process, leading important sectors. We have a female deputy prime minister who is leading the technical dialogue process with Serbia in search for stability for the region. And another woman leading our efforts to join the European Union. These are the two most important political processes for Kosovo. But there is much left for us to do to increase the representation of women at the local level in order to implement the laws which safeguard a democratic society. My dear friends, as you may know, the Republic of Kosovo is only 5 years old. We have a lot to learn and a lot to share with the world. Women are the pillars of the family, and that the progress of the society is directly linked to her emancipation. To accept of diversity as a value that unifies us, that enriches our societies, and to build our future upon it. I am proud to be the first female president in the Balkans and the first woman president of Kosovo. In this role, apart from my daily obligations as the president, in the service to my fellow citizens, I am committed to inspire and motivate the new generation of girls to play an active role in all the fields of our society. It comes naturally to all of us. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.